Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second webinar of the year produced by Boxer Advisors. For those people who missed it, I think it was last week. I think, is that Kamori? I think that's right, that we did a webinar last week. We did
Yes.
a session. It was top 10 lessons from 2019 and planning for 2020. And so I had read an article several years ago that I thought was very clever, and it gave it raised a number of questions to reflect on the year that was and plan for the year that is. And so I did a webinar on that topic last week. And so if you're on this call and you didn't get a copy of that webinar, we're going to give you my email address at the end of this session. And if you'd like a copy of that, a link to that recording, you just let us know and we will send that to you. So people may know, you may not know. So this month, January, is National Mentoring Month. And I have been a mentor to many people in my career, and I have been mentored by people in my career. And we have worked with dozens of private companies, Fortune 1000 corporations, and federal agencies to help them implement mentoring programs. And so what we're going to talk about today is we'll give you a little bit of an overview on us. We'll talk a little bit about why mentoring, some of the challenges that you face and other organizations have faced with mentoring. We'll talk a little bit about what's the difference between mentoring and coaching. I'll share with you from our perspective, what are some of the keys to implementing a mentoring program. And then what we'll do is we'll dive in, and what we're going to do is we're going to share a case study of one of the implementations from one of our clients. And so we'll tell you a little bit about the curriculum. We'll say a little bit about what's different with that implementation. We'll talk a little bit about the impact that program had with that one organization's. And then what we'll do is we'll wrap up. I've got some thoughts about ways that some of you might be able to continue to share some best practices information relative to mentoring, and we'll give you some thoughts regarding how can you transfer some of what you learned today back on the job. So that's what we're going to talk about. Some housekeeping details. So one of the things I think I did mention, we did record the session last week. We're recording this webinar. If you would like a copy of the link or the link to the recording of the session that you'd like to share with others, just send me an email and we will send it to you. There are 3 different ways for you to participate in today's webinar. One is there are several, I think there are 4 polling questions that we've developed that will provide you an opportunity to provide us with your feedback. Second, for me, it appears at the top of my scroll, at the top of my computer, there should be a scroll bar that you see that should either say Q&A or chat, Q&A or chat. And so if you see that, if you have specific questions as we go, you can type them in the chat bar, and I'm going to do my best. And if I miss any, Kamori, who is riding shotgun today, she's providing administrative support. If I miss anything, she'll let me know. And then the third way is if you're on the webinar, we will end, I promise, promptly at 2 p.m. Certainly no longer than that. And so if you don't get a chance to ask a question, or you get off of the webinar, you said, oh man, I wish I'd asked this. Again, we'll give you my email at the end of the session. And you can send me an email and I will do my best to respond quickly. Komori is gonna put on the chat bar her email address. And if anyone is having any challenges accessing the webinar, hearing me, or seeing the screen, you can send an email to Komori and she'll do her best to troubleshoot to figure out how do we get you access quickly. I think those are the main things around housekeeping details. Komori, is there anything that I've missed that you think I need to mention?
You covered everything.
Yeehaw. Okay, so let's do the first thing, or the next thing, and let's launch our first polling question. And so the first polling question, a couple of you did respond to the pre-work question, but I'm interested to hear your responses to what are you hoping to learn from today's session? And so if you can vote on that, and if you're voting other, which some of you already are doing, which is fine, if you can type in the chat bar, what are you hoping to learn, that would be great. So we're gonna close the poll in 10 seconds. So 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go ahead and close the poll. So let's look at the results. So 40% of you said identify specific challenges. 80% of you said learn about mentoring best practices. 20% said specific resources to help facilitate mentoring, and 20% said other. Again, if you said other, if you can type out what you meant in the chat bar, I'll do my best to respond to that in the 60 seconds. So thank you for doing that. So let me share one story with you, which I think is a best practice. So I would say many times, when clients are thinking about implementing mentoring programs, they think about, what are some ways that this will be helpful to mentees. And so, the mentees could be, just general employees. They can be part of a cohort learning group. They can be, mid-managers who are aspiring to be senior managers. There's lots of different applications of mentoring. And so several years ago, we were consulting with one of the largest oil and gas companies in the world. And they were implementing a group mentoring program. And one of the mentors was the head of research and development. And he had a number of mentees that he was mentoring, again, as part of a group mentoring process. And so literally this implementation won their internal Baldrige Award as a best practice. And the reason they won it was they literally invented a new additive that they ended up selling into the marketplace. It produced millions of dollars to their bottom line. And the way it came to be is the mentor purposely selected people who were fresh out of graduate school as people that he was gonna mentor. And you know, he would ask these young people for information that they were learning in graduate school, and they shared with him some of the white papers or articles that they had read. And as a result of this, again, they invented a new additive. And so one of the best practices I'd like to share from the beginning is, when you're thinking about mentoring programs, don't just think about the benefits to the mentee, although obviously there can be many. Think about benefits to the mentor. Okay, so that would be one best practice to share. I'm going to do my best to again share some best practices and some resources, and identify some challenges as we go. You know, feel free to ask me questions. So some of you, you know, we've got sort of an interesting mix on the call of some clients and some current clients, and then some people who are new to Boxer Advisors. So I've run my own consulting firm. This is year 28. I am proud of that. The mission of the company is to create and deliver a high impact consulting, coaching, training solutions to meet our client needs. We think one of the secret sauces to do what we do is to integrate our solutions into our clients. And when we do that and provide some sustainers, clients are able to realize a measurable return on investments. Again, not unlike this oil and gas company that was able to drop millions to the bottom line. The focus of our business is to do three things. One, to develop leadership capabilities. And with some of our clients who have implemented leadership development programs, some of them, we've actually connected mentoring programs to help facilitate the development of leadership capabilities. We also help clients drive organizational change. And so sometimes to drive organizational change, one of the ways that we've seen mentoring programs implemented is to support the onboarding process. And so one of the ways that you can implement a mentoring program in support of the onboarding process is for the mentors to share with the mentees some of the critical ingredients for success in that organization. And in so doing, I think you can help create a culture that supports some of the changes that a senior executive might be trying to implement. And then third, we help clients engage and retain top talent. And again, we've had clients, again, I can think of in the intelligence community where, since the September 11th report, they have been on a mission to engage and retain a diverse workforce and have implemented mentoring as a way to help do that. So that's a little bit about us, a little bit about objectives for today. Let's launch our second poll and try to get a sense of what are some of the challenges that you're facing in your organization. And again, we'll keep the poll open another 20 seconds. So if everyone can vote. And so we'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go ahead and close the poll. So 50% of you said lack of senior leadership support. 25 said, budget So there's not a budget to support the training of mentors and mentees. And 75% of you said no tool to measure success, no way to measure or monitor the progress in linking mentoring to other initiatives. And so I'll say a little bit about the last thing. And so if you don't know about the 4 levels of measurement, the Kirkpatrick 4-level model and measurement, again, you can send me an email, but there are easy to implement tools that you can use to measure the success. Again, I'll give you one example. Several years ago, we worked with the National Institutes of Health in helping them implement a fairly broad organizational change initiative. As part of that initiative, we helped them with strategic planning. We helped them, we did some training. We provided some executive coaching. And one of the things we did, we launched some process improvements. We did some mentoring. And so one of the things that we did do is we had an independent organization conduct an assessment of the progress that they had made. And I believe conservatively, the organization was able to identify $500,000 in return on investment from the several years of this organizational change initiative, which obviously we were delighted to see. But I think there are ways to measure success, and I'll try to give you some other examples as we go. So some of the challenges that we have seen from some of our clients are that there's no plan. And so, if there's not a plan, it's almost impossible, I think, to have a productive program. I do believe that, what's measured gets done. And so I think there's ways to link mentoring to developing specific competencies, or the case study I'm going to share with you today linked it to employee satisfaction. You can do that. You can link it to a level 2 evaluation. And if you're linking your mentoring program to an onboarding program, you should be able to measure what people are learning about some of the keys to success in that organization. Some other things that we see, I think, in terms of what are some of the challenges is either mentees don't have the skills, or frankly, what we see more of is the mentors don't have the skills. And so on Thursday of this week, I'm going to be helping one of our clients to launch their 2020 cohort for their mentoring program. And this is the 3rd year that we're working with them. And one of the things that we did in analyzing year 2 is we took a look at what was working, what wasn't working. And one of the things I noted is they did not do any training for their mentors. And so this year, we're doing that. This Thursday, we're going to do some training for the mentors. Then we're going to bring the mentors back with the mentees. We're going to do some prep for the first meeting, and then off they'll go. I think the other thing that we've seen sometimes as some challenges is, again, when you think about mentoring, supporting diversity initiatives, if they're not women or people of color or people from the LGBT community to serve as mentors, that sometimes can be a problem. And so these are some of the things that we've seen over the years that are some of the challenges. And one of the last things, and then we'll move on to the next slide, is convincing employees that the mentoring program is worth the time and effort. And so one of the things that I would say is, I think for all of us is, you have to have, I don't know if you're all familiar with the term WIFM, what's in it for me. But one of the things that I would strongly suggest all of you think about is, what are some specific WIFMs that you can communicate to mentors and mentees so that there's something in it for them to participate. So those are some of the challenges that we've seen, and a couple of, again, tools that you can use. So now let's talk a little bit about what's the difference between coaching and mentoring. So there are some of our clients who implement coaching initiatives using internal coaches. There are some of our clients who implement coaching initiatives who use external, our coaches. And there are some clients who both have a coaching initiative and a mentoring initiative. And so one of the things that, when you look at the difference between coaching and mentoring is, in the coaching process, the primary focus is developing strong problem solvers and having the coach engage the coachee in questions to draw the knowledge out from the coachee. In the mentoring relationship, the mentor typically might share their expertise. They might offer answers and solutions. They're sharing knowledge with the mentor, and the mentee may have their own knowledge, but it is a little bit different. Some of the benefits of coaching are, you get a fresh perspective on individual challenges. When you're coaching, you can hopefully develop decision-making skills and interpersonal effectiveness, and ultimately, you're hopefully increasing the confidence from the coachee by unlocking some of the talents within each person. And so one of the things that, if you do have any coaching going on in the organization, or you're thinking about launching some coaching in your organization, I would encourage you to think about ways that you can connect coaching to mentoring. So what I'd like to do now is share with you some of the keys that that we have found to be critical to implementing a mentoring program. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. Again, if people have questions, you can, send me a question on the chat bar, and I'll do my best to answer them. So the first thing I would say is, you got to examine the culture. And by that, I think you have to examine, sort of what are some of the drivers that are supporting your mentoring initiative, and what are some restrainers getting in the way of your mentoring initiative? What sort of data do you have about your culture before you launch a mentoring program that might, frankly, give you a tip-off of some of the things that you should think about before you go ahead and launch a mentoring initiative. The second thing, I think, is to gain leadership support. And so the best programs that we have implemented do have a senior leadership support at the beginning of the mentoring program. And so one of the programs that we implemented with Intel, we actually interviewed several members of the senior leadership team, and they talked about who mentored them early on in their career. And we used that video throughout the mentoring programs. And it was a nice way for the senior leaders to talk about, again, who mentored them, and for them to talk about their support of the mentoring program. The third is to examine management practices. And so, if some of you have a 360 tool or some way of assessing management practices, I think there are interesting ways to connect a mentoring program to help build some critical skills, maybe around giving feedback or clarifying expectations, or some technical skills. The fourth issue is to design systems. And so by that, basically what we're looking at is looking at the systems that you have in place. So for instance, one of the things that we're doing with the mentoring program that we're launching on Thursday is we're connecting the mentoring program to a job shadowing process where people can see other people at work. We're also connecting the mentoring program to some team activities, allowing participants to participate in some team activities, hopefully build some critical team skills, and also go about the process of making some real process improvements happen. And then a third system that I could think about is the reward and recognition process or system. And so again, you can connect mentoring to the reward and recognition process by maybe, again, if one of the mentees did something really beneficial, you might, be able to give them a spot award. The next is to review organizational needs. So if you've done a good job at examining the culture and you hopefully have gained a leadership support, you can sort of take a look at what are some of the specific needs that we have in our organization. So are we trying to, again, build leadership competencies? Are we trying to help support diversity in the organization? Are we trying to enhance the onboarding of talent so that more people stick around? Are we trying to reinforce, efforts around employee satisfaction? And so those are some, I think, critical questions that you need to ask yourself as you're beginning to launch or to sustain a mentoring program. The next thing is to design a communication plan. And frankly, this is a step many clients skip over, and I would say is one of the challenges of implementing a mentoring program. And so I think having some sort of communication process that clearly outlines, what are the benefits to the mentoring program, how are people to participate, that clarifies the matching process, etc., is critical. Then you need to clarify mentee-mentee roles, and then lastly, to determine how you're going to measure the success of the initiative. And so our perspective is those are some of the key things that we have seen when we've worked with clients to implement a mentoring program that are some of the ingredients to success. And so I would ask all of you to think about, do you have all those things at play? Are there some specific things that you're missing? I think is a helpful exercise for everyone to be doing. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at one of our clients who implemented a mentoring program. And I'll take a few minutes to describe what they have done. What were some of the key components of their mentoring program? What sort of curriculum did we build? What were some tools that we've used? And I'll talk a little bit about the results. So we do have one question, and one of the questions was, how do we go about reviewing our organizational needs for a mentoring program? And so I gave you some examples of what I think some of our clients would say their needs are. And so I think the best way to do this is to examine, again, what's working and what's not with your organization, and to think about, again, what are some ways that you can link the mentoring program to something that's important to your organization. Okay, so hopefully that answers the question. If there are other questions, please let me know. So what we're going to do next, for the next 10 minutes-ish, we're going to take a look at one client who implemented a mentoring program. And again, I'm going to share with you a little bit about what were the core components to their program, and then what were some of the outcomes that they achieved. So one of this specific mentoring program, you have to complete a registration form to participate. And this one is a 7-month commitment. They have a combination, in this case, of face-to-face and phone, and virtual engagements. They do have a monthly professional development that they offer for their mentees. And one of the components that they have that's critical is to maintain confidentiality. So obviously it's really important from a trust perspective for the mentee to feel comfortable that what he or she says doesn't get repeated back to others. And so maintaining confidentiality is key with this specific program, and I would say with most of the programs to do that. What's different about this mentoring program is the following. One of the things is we actually create this with the government, and we've co-managed the implementation of this program. Second, it's a mix of in-person and virtual sessions. There's an integration of the training that's provided, and what I mean by that is so we have a kickoff session, and then I'll share with you some of the content that we've done. But if we're in session number 3, the facilitator of session number 3 will ask the participants, what are some of the things they learned from session number 2? So there's an integration of the sessions. The other thing what's different about this is we're focused on helping participants to translate the insights of what they learn either from an in-person or virtual training back on the job. Membership in this implementation is not limited to mentor pairs. So there are other people who are not involved in the mentoring program who participate in the training, and they not only have people in their central office, but they also have people from the regional offices. And then I'll share with you 2 tools that we have developed to help facilitate translating insights into action. So that's a little bit about what's different with this specific program. This is an example of some of the curricula that we have provided to this one client. So you can see sessions on building your legacy, about strengthening your career satisfaction, understanding your style, building partnerships and collaborations with others, enhancing your professional presence, presentation skills, and then we'll end with a final session to help people celebrate their accomplishments. So some of these sessions were in person, and some of them were done virtually via webinar. So as I said, two of the tools that we have developed with this one client that helped the participants to translate insights of what they're learning back on the job and helped them come up with specific ideas of ways that mentors can participate together is we have a mentoring calendar that one of our colleagues has developed. And so she has developed this mentoring calendar that basically has not for almost every day, she'll have listings of specific activities that either the mentee can do on their own, the mentor can do on their own to develop their discrete skills, or maybe as importantly, that the mentor and mentee can do together. So one of the things that we've found with mentoring programs is one of the ways that mentoring sometimes doesn't work is when the mentors and mentees, they look at each other and say, I don't know what we need to do. And so in this case, again, we've taken that challenge out of the equation because the mentoring calendar provides you with 20-ish ideas of specific things that you can either do on your own or together with your mentor or mentee. With one of our clients, with some of our clients, we offer this tool to a paper version. With other clients, we host it on a virtual site. With other clients, we actually pop it onto our website where people can examine, every client can see it, but that specific client can. And so there's many different ways to leverage the mentoring calendar as a way of giving both the mentees and mentors specific ideas, again, of what to do. And I think that is a best practice. A second thing that we've done with this client and now several clients is we have developed a private blog post. And so the blog serves as a way to share monthly articles, different resources, different assessment tools, and also can serve as a way for mentees to communicate with other mentees, or mentors to communicate with other mentors, or mentees to communicate with mentors, and or some of our instructional team for them to communicate with participants. And so it's a really interesting way to share success stories, to ask questions, to serve as a community of practice, if you will, of what's going on with mentoring. And so again, this is something one of our colleagues came up with, and we've implemented with a number of clients as a way to help people implement some of what they're learning in the classroom back on the job. So the impact of this specific mentoring program is that I think in this case, I think the client was able to show how this one client was able to, connect the implementation of their mentoring program to their way of measuring employee engagement and employee satisfaction. And they were able to see an increase, an improvement in their scores over the past fiscal year. And they were able to, connect that back to some of the training that mentors and mentees receive, which is outstanding, which is great. Some other things that, again, this one client by implementing mentoring program, they were able to do is they were better able to retain some of the people that they most wanted to keep in the system. They were able to preserve some of the vast knowledge that people had who were close to retirement. And so they could think about specific ways that they could build their legacy and maybe share some of what they've learned with others, which is a great thing to do for people who are nearing retirement age. And then for people who were new to this specific government client, they were able to help with their transition, so they had a better sense of what were the informal rules of the road. They had a better sense of what was expected of them, so they were able to be more successful earlier on, which is great. So this is one specific client who implemented, and I thought as a way of sharing some best practices that it might be helpful to again take a look at that as a case study. So what I'd like to do next is maybe launch our third poll, examining what strategies have you all tried to launch mentoring programs in your organization. So we'll keep this poll open for another 25 seconds. So again, if you guys can all vote. All right, we'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So let's see. 50% of you said planning to enlist support of senior leaders. That's great, great. Another 50% of you said creative approaches to providing training. I would be curious to know if you can type in the chat bar, what creative approaches are you using to provide training for mentors and mentees? And I'd also be curious, is there anything else that maybe isn't listed that that you're doing to implement your mentoring program? So again, 2 questions that you can, if you can type in the chat bar, are A, what are you doing that's a creative approach? And then the second thing is there anything else that isn't one of these 4 ideas that you're using to implement your mentoring program or to launch your mentoring program? So in the time remaining, again, I'm happy to answer any questions. What I will do is I'll share another story with you. So one of the things that I am really proud of is the work that we've done during the past 12 years in the intelligence community. We have worked with 4 out of the 5 major agencies in the intelligence community. One of our clients that begins with a C and ends with an A and there's an I in the middle, again, a way of measuring. They, again, a lot of what we've done with them has been implementing programs and coaching and conferences to help them do a better job at engaging top talent. And one of the things that they did um, is they tracked the number of meetings that that managers were having with their employees as a result of the employee engagement training that we did. And they were able to track literally 200 meetings between managers and employees. And if you think about the value of that to that organization, that's a big deal. The second story I'll share with you is, and one participant said, you know, our local management does not appear to be interested in a formal mentoring program. So I would say if that's the case, I would say three things. One, I would try to understand what is important to your specific local management or your agency. What is top of mind to them? Second, is there a way to connect that mentoring program to that? And then the third thing is, you know, sometimes you can implement an informal mentoring program. And if anyone wants to talk about that, I'm happy to share with you how that might work. And so again, interestingly, within the intelligence community, one of our clients in the intel agencies implemented a mentoring program. And we did a follow-up survey of both mentors, and we did a follow-up survey of mentees. And one of the interesting things, again, from a senior leadership support perspective, is we were able to document, frankly, in this particular implementation, that the mentors got as much, if not more, from the mentoring program in terms of developing their own skills than the mentees. And so I think one of the ways that you can hook senior leaders is to get their perspective of what are some of the things that they're looking to improve as a group, and is there a way to connect the mentoring program to help build those critical skills. So I'm going to move on to the next thing. And so just, one of the things that came up in some of the pre-work were, what are some ways that people can share best practices and maybe get some help beyond this webinar. So I'm going to work up the channel. So one of the things that we've implemented is a mentoring doctor services. And so we have, with some of our clients, helped them to launch a mentoring program, and they have us either A, on a retainer, or B, they've got a bank of consulting days that they hire us, or C, they hire us on an hourly basis to help either A, dissect specific challenges that they're facing in implementing their mentoring program, and or offer specific strategies to help them either launch or sustain a mentoring program. The second thing we've done several years ago, and again, if you're interested in any of these, you just send me an email and we'll figure out how to make it happen. So the second thing is, several years ago, we hosted a mentoring learning community. And basically it was 8 to 12 project managers who were responsible for implementing mentoring in their organization. And we met once a month. We had a small fee. I think it was $950 for the year. And every different session, we covered a different topic related to mentoring. So we might have one session was on training mentors, or another was developing some innovative communication strategies, or another could be what are some ways to build trust between mentors and mentees, or another could be what are some icebreakers that you can use to introduce mentors to mentees. And so again, if that's something that you're interested, let me know. And then years ago, we were part of a group called the Federal Mentoring Roundtable. And it was a group of federal uh, program managers who were responsible for implementing mentoring. And so one of the things that we're toying around with is maybe trying to reinstate the federal mentoring roundtable in some way. Again, if that's something that you're interested in, just bot me an email and we'll see if there might be some energy around that. So one of the things that I'd like to do before we get off the phone is make all of you an offer. So if you are a mentor and you would like some specific guidance on how you can be a better mentor, or B, you're thinking about gaining senior leadership support for your mentoring efforts and you'd like to discuss the specifics of that with me, or you've got an existing mentoring program and you're thinking about ways to sustain it, for the first 3 people that send me an email, the subject line should say 30-minute free coaching or 30-minute free mentoring coaching. We'll schedule a 30-minute virtual session with you to talk about your specific challenges. And so if people are interested in that, again, you just send me an email and we'll set up that one-on-one coaching session with you. So I'm going to just stop for a minute and ask if there are any questions. Again, I'm happy to answer them. So one question that's come up is, are there any circumstances where we would suggest an organization not implement a mentoring program? I would say if you can't get one member of senior leadership to support it, or if you can't think of some way to connect the mentoring program to something important in the organization, or if there's literally no funding to either support an internal person to do it or an external partner to do it, or some combination of, those are probably 3 reasons that I would say maybe you got to do some more homework. Maybe you got to do some more homework. So in the time remaining, what I want to do is talk a little bit about next steps. And so it does seem to me that if you're in this session, that you should be thinking about 2 questions, and we're going to send everyone an email who's participated in today's session. Again, I think it's got 5 questions. If you can get back to us, we would be really curious. I know 2 of the questions we're going to ask are, what's one thing that you learned or confirmed from today's session? And then a second question will be, what's one action that you're going to take as a result of today's session? And so one of the things I'd like to do is go ahead and launch polling question number 4, again, giving you some perspective of what are some next steps. And one of the things we probably should have done, it's my fault, is we probably should have had one of the answers be other, and please specify. So if there's some other action that you intend to take as a result of attending today's webinar, again, you can type that directly into the chat bar, and I would be, again, curious to see that. So we'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So 50% of you say, I'm going to meet with my boss to review the presentation, prioritize actions. Great, 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 great. And then 50% of you say you're going to prepare the business case for launching a mentoring program or adding tools to support mentoring program. So if you're doing that, so I would say if you're meeting with your boss, what I would suggest that you do is, again, if, excuse me, I'm sorry. So if you want a copy of the slides from today's presentation, we'll share with you my email. Just send me an email and we'll send that out. And so what I might do is I might share with your boss what are some of the keys. I think we showed 8 keys to success of a mentoring program. And then I might engage with your boss in terms of what are some of the things that we're doing really well. And I would try to understand what's important to your boss. And then if I were preparing a business case, again, I would look at those 8 keys to success. I would look at what are some things that we're doing really well. What are some things that maybe we're not doing well? What are some action plans to help close the gap? Are there some tools, some best practices that you've learned today, either that involve providing training for mentors and mentees, maybe doing a video for capturing a senior leader's perspective on mentoring. One of the things that we've done with another client is we developed, I think, 4 different videos that we provide to mentors. So I think one of them was, what are some things that can cause mentoring relationships not to work? What are some keys to the first meeting? What are some critical ingredients to being an effective mentor? And so, so I think those are, and so if you're preparing a business case, I would, again, try to outline what are some of the key things that are important in the organization, and then how can you link the mentoring program to help address that issue. So again, it can be, we're bringing on all of, bring all these new people, and we want to help them, stay with the organization, or B, we want to implement a group mentoring program that's a little bit different. So you just have to think through, what application are you going to try to implement, and then again, how can you connect the mentoring program to help support what's important for the organization. Those are some specific thoughts around developing a business case. Again, if anyone is interested in doing a business case and you want me to take a look at it, again, all you need to do is say mentoring free coaching, and I'm happy to offer 30 minutes of my time to take a quick look at what you might be doing. So before we finish up today, a few things. One, I want to thank all of you for participating in today's session. Secondly, again, if you want a link to either a recording of the session, or if you want the slides, just send me an email and we'll take care of that. Third is, we're going to send you an email in the next 24 hours asking for your feedback. Whenever we do these webinars, it's an opportunity for us to add value to our current clients and colleagues. And so if you have any thoughts regarding what worked and what didn't, or what can we do to improve, please let us know. And then the last thing is, is that our next webinar, it's up on the screen, is the one for SBA is not for everyone, so we can take that one down. The next one is being intentional about building new habits Building Intentional About Building New Habits, February 18th. So we all, again, it's the beginning of the year, think about ways that we can build new habits. And so if that's something that's of interest to you, again, the registration link is there. And, if you want to participate, you can let us know. I can probably deal with one last question. So it doesn't look like there's any last questions. With that, I'd like to thank all of you for participating. If you have a mentor, maybe there's a great opportunity for you to express your gratitude to them. If you have a mentee, there's an opportunity to express your gratitude to them. I know I'm going to do it, and I'm looking forward to participating with one of our clients this Thursday. So with that, again, thanks to all of you for participating today, and I wish you much success in implementing your program or getting a new mentoring program off the ground. With that, that's the end of today's webinar.